Welcome, weary travelers of the dusk. I'm the Weaver of Whispers, here to spin a thread of stories to ease you into slumber. I know this video is your lantern for the night, so before we wander further, tap a like and join my quiet company with a subscription. Where are you tonight, and what time hums in your corner of the world? Sink into your pillows, breathe deep, and let the journey begin. A night in the abandoned house in the woods. This happened to me a few years ago, in early autumn. I had decided to go camping alone, something I used to do often, just to clear my head. I picked a forest about an hour away from my town, a place I thought I knew well enough not to get into trouble. That afternoon, I parked my car at the trailhead and started hiking deeper into the woods. The trees were thick, their tops blocking most of the gray sky above. The air smelled of wet leaves and distant rain, and the further I walked, the quieter it became. No people, no animals, just me and the forest. I had planned to set up camp near a small clearing I knew about, but by the time I got close, it started to rain. First a drizzle, then heavier drops pattering on the ground. The clearing was already turning into a muddy mess. Setting up a tent there would have been miserable. As I looked around for shelter, I noticed something between the trees, a structure. At first, I thought it might be an old cabin. Curiosity got the better of me, and I made my way toward it. The building was unsettling. It looked ancient, the wood blackened by time, the roof sagging, windows either broken or missing entirely. I hesitated, standing there in the rain. The smart thing would have been to turn around, but the rain was picking up, and I told myself it was just an old house, nothing more. I pushed the door open with my foot. It groaned loudly, swinging inward into darkness. The smell inside was overwhelming: mold, damp wood, and something else. Something faintly metallic, like rusted iron. I clicked on my flashlight. Dust floated in the beam, swirling lazily. The floorboards creaked under my boots as I moved inside. Every step echoed strangely, like the house itself was breathing around me. I found a room near the back, no windows, just solid walls, and decided it was the safest place to ride out the storm. I unrolled my sleeping bag on a relatively dry patch of floor, set down my backpack, and sat listening to the rain hammering the roof above me. For a while, everything was fine. The steady rhythm of rain was almost comforting. I even started to relax until I heard it. Footsteps. At first, I thought it must have been the wind, or maybe an animal outside, but no. These were definite heavy steps, slow, measured, moving across the warped floorboards. I froze, straining to hear. They came closer, then stopped. Right outside the room where I was sitting. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. I turned off my flashlight, plunging myself into complete darkness. I didn't move, didn't breathe. Something scratched at the door, not like an animal pawing. It was deliberate. Fingernails maybe, dragging slowly from top to bottom, then silence. Minutes passed. I don't know how many. It felt like hours. When I finally dared to turn the flashlight back on, nothing was there. No one. Just the old, empty hallway, stretching into darkness. I stayed awake all night, listening to every creak, every whisper of the wind. When dawn finally came, pale and cold, I packed up my things as fast as I could and ran from that place. I tried to find that house again later, thinking maybe it had been some weird, abandoned landmark. But no matter how many times I searched those woods, it was gone, like it had never been there at all. The figure on the highway. This happened last winter when I was driving back home after visiting my parents. It was late, sometime after midnight, and the highway was almost completely empty. Just a long, endless stretch of dark road cutting through frozen fields. The weather had turned ugly. It had started snowing heavily, and the wind pushed the flakes across the road in swirling, ghostly patterns. My headlights barely cut through the storm, and I found myself gripping the wheel tighter, leaning forward, squinting into the white blur ahead. I was maybe 30 minutes from home when I first saw it. At the edge of the road, just beyond the shoulder, there was a figure. I caught it in a quick flash. A person, standing completely still in the snow. No car nearby, no movement, just standing there, staring. I felt a jolt of adrenaline, but before I could really react, I had already passed them. I thought maybe they needed help, that maybe their car had broken down somewhere behind the trees. I slowed down, debating whether I should turn around, but something about it felt wrong. I couldn't explain it. I kept driving. About 10 minutes later, I saw them again. Same figure, same spot, just off the side of the road, as if they had somehow gotten ahead of me, even though there were no exits, no cross streets, nothing but forest on either side. I was going 60 miles an hour. There was no way they could have walked, let alone run, that distance through knee-deep snow in the time it took me to get there. This time, I got a better look. They were wearing something dark, a coat, or maybe a cloak, but their face, it was pale, almost glowing against the darkness, and they were staring straight at me as I passed, not waving, not signaling for help, just standing, watching. The temperature inside my car felt like it dropped 10 degrees. I didn't slow down this time. I pressed harder on the gas, heart pounding, eyes darting between the rearview mirror and the road ahead. I kept telling myself there had to be a logical explanation. Maybe I was tired. Maybe it was a trick of the snow, the lights, my own exhausted mind. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. About 5 minutes from my town, I reached a long, curved stretch of highway where a single, battered old sign warned of deer crossing. I was just starting to relax when I saw something move ahead. Something stepping into the road. For a split second, I thought it was a deer. It wasn't. It was the figure. Standing directly in the middle of my lane, arms at their sides, staring right at me. I slammed the brakes, tires screeching on the icy pavement. The car fishtailed, sliding sideways, and I gripped the wheel, trying to avoid spinning out. When the car finally skidded to a stop, I looked up, expecting to see them inches from my hood. But there was nothing there. The road was empty. No figure, no tracks, no sign that anyone had ever been there at all. I sat there for a long moment, breathing hard, the snow pounding against the windshield. Then I slowly pulled back onto the road and drove home, refusing to look into the rearview mirror, no matter how badly I wanted to. I didn't take that highway for months afterward, and sometimes, even now, when I'm driving at night, I get the feeling that someone's standing just off the side of the road, waiting. Whispers. Outside the tent. A couple of summers ago, I went camping with 2 of my friends. We picked a remote spot miles away from the nearest town, deep in the woods where you could barely get any cell service. It was supposed to be a weekend to disconnect. Just us, a campfire, and the stars overhead. The first night went exactly like we planned. We set up the tents, cooked over the fire, told stupid stories, and laughed until our voices echoed through the trees. It felt peaceful out there, isolated in the best way. The second night was different. The air had shifted, colder, heavier. Even the woods sounded different. The usual chorus of crickets and rustling leaves had fallen almost completely silent, like the forest was holding its breath. We tried to brush it off. Maybe it was the weather. Maybe it was just in our heads. By midnight, we crawled into our tents, zipped them up, and tried to sleep. I don't know how long I lay there, staring into the darkness of the tent, before I heard it. A whisper. At first, it was so soft I thought it was the wind, just a faint hissing, weaving between the trees. But as I listened, It became clearer, distinct words, though I couldn't make out what they were saying. I sat up, heart pounding, and strained to hear. It sounded like multiple voices, low, murmuring, moving around the camp. I unzipped the tent just an inch and peered out. The fire had burned down to nothing but embers. The woods beyond were pitch black. I couldn't see anyone, but the voices were there, circling, as if a group of people was walking slowly around us. I whispered to my friends, asked if they were hearing it too. One of them, Jake, muttered something about a bad dream and turned over. The other, Sam, didn't answer at all. Then I heard footsteps. Soft at first, like someone stepping carefully through the underbrush, getting closer, closer. Suddenly, something brushed against the side of my tent. Just a light touch, like fingers running along the fabric. I froze, barely breathing. Another whisper, right outside the tent now. So close I could almost feel the breath behind it. Still no clear words. Just the sickening feeling that whoever, or whatever, was out there, was trying to lure us out. I clenched my flashlight, but I didn't turn it on. Some instinct told me not to, that if I showed any sign I was awake, they might come inside. I sat like that for what felt like hours, the whispers rising and falling, footsteps crunching in the dead leaves, circling, always just out of sight. Sometime just before dawn, the sounds faded. One by one, the voices drifted away, swallowed by the forest. The last thing I heard was a single drawn-out whisper right at the entrance to my tent, a word I finally understood. Come. When the sun finally rose, I stumbled outside. Jake and Sam were already packing, pale and shaking. They'd heard it too. We broke camp in record time and didn't speak much on the drive home. We never went back to those woods again. And even now, when the night is quiet and the wind picks up just right, I swear I can still hear those whispers, somewhere just beyond the trees, the midnight call. This happened to me last winter. I had just moved into a new apartment in a quiet part of the city. It was an old building, with narrow hallways and peeling wallpaper, the kind of place that felt a little forgotten by time. I didn't mind it. I liked the solitude. One night I was already in bed, trying to sleep after a long week at work. It was just past midnight when my phone rang. I remember looking at the screen, expecting to see a call from a friend, or maybe a family member. But there was no name, just a number, a string of digits that didn't look familiar at all. I hesitated before picking it up. I wasn't expecting anyone, but curiosity got the best of me, and I swiped to answer. Hello? I said, my voice still thick with sleep. The other end was completely silent. No sounds at all. I waited for a moment, thinking it might be a wrong number or a telemarketer. But then, I heard something. A faint breathing, slow, deep, almost like it was being forced. I froze. My heart skipped a beat. No one spoke. Hello? I said again, my voice now more alert, but still no response. I was just about to hang up when a whisper came through the line. It wasn't a word, just a sound. A soft, guttural hum, like someone trying to speak, but unable to form real words. I felt a chill crawl down my spine. I pulled the phone away from my ear for a second, just to make sure I wasn't imagining it. But then, there it was again. The whisper, louder this time. Help me. The voice was raspy, almost strained, and it sent a wave of unease washing over me. I gripped the phone tighter, my thoughts racing. Who is this? I asked, my voice shaking slightly. The line went dead. I checked my phone. The call had ended. But the thing was, the screen didn't show that it had been a missed call. It was as if no one had called at all. I stared at the screen for a long time, trying to make sense of it. I checked the number, but it didn't match anything in my contacts. It wasn't from anyone I knew. I tried to dismiss it, chalking it up to my imagination playing tricks on me in the dark. But something about it didn't sit right. The voice. The way it sounded so close, yet so far away. I tried to go back to sleep, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw the number on my phone. My mind kept replaying the whisper, "Help me," over and over. A few minutes later, my phone rang again. I looked at the screen, heart pounding. The same number. I didn't want to pick it up, but I couldn't stop myself. I answered, breath catching in my throat. This time, the voice was clearer, almost desperate. "You shouldn't have answered." I didn't say anything. I just hung up, immediately. But that wasn't the end of it. The calls kept coming, at random hours during the night, always from that same strange number. Sometimes the voice was just breathing. Other times, it would whisper something. "Don't sleep," or "I see you." Each call made my skin crawl, and I couldn't figure out what was happening. I tried blocking the number, but it didn't help. The calls kept coming, from different numbers, sometimes even with no number at all. I couldn't take it anymore. I packed up my things and moved out of that apartment. But even now, I get the occasional call. Each time I answer, there's only silence, or that same whisper, "Help me." And I can't help but wonder, was I ever supposed to hear it? Voices on the recorder. It was a weekend hike, nothing unusual. I'd been on plenty of them before, so when my friend Mark suggested we take a quick trip to the mountains for the weekend, I didn't think twice. We were both avid hikers, and this trail was one of those lesser-known routes, the kind where you rarely encounter other people. We set out early in the morning. The air was crisp, and the sun had barely risen when we hit the trail. We made good progress, the path winding through dense forests before opening up to steep, rocky outcrops. It felt peaceful, almost surreal. I remember thinking how lucky I was to be away from the chaos of daily life. At some point during the hike, we decided to stop for a break. We found a small clearing near a creek, and Mark pulled out a handheld recorder. It wasn't something we typically used, but Mark thought it'd be a fun way to document the trip. He started recording, joking about how much fun we were having, and how we'd probably get lost in the woods and never be seen again. We laughed, but something in his tone struck me as odd, almost uneasy. We took a few more pictures, shared some snacks, and then continued on. It wasn't until we made camp later that evening, just as the sky turned dark, that Mark pulled out the recorder again. He played back the earlier recordings, laughing at our dumb jokes, but when he pressed play for the last clip, I froze. I didn't recognize it at first. There was no context, no laughter, just whispering. Quiet at first, like a distant hum. Then, unmistakably, a voice, harsh and raspy, like it was coming from deep within the earth itself. "Get out," it whispered, barely audible, but clear enough for me to hear. I laughed it off, thinking it was some weird feedback from the recorder or interference from the wind. But then the voice came again, louder this time and clearer. "Leave now." I felt a chill run down my spine. Mark was already hitting the rewind button, playing the same part over again. The voice was still there, but there was more now. Footsteps, faint but unmistakable, as if someone had been walking near us the entire time we were sitting by the creek. We both fell silent. It was unnerving, especially since the recorder had been lying on the ground the entire time, right next to us. There was no one else around, just the two of us in the middle of nowhere. Mark shrugged it off at first, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I told him I wasn't comfortable staying out there for the night, that the forest felt alive in a way I couldn't explain. But Mark just laughed again, dismissing it as paranoia. That night, we took turns keeping watch. I kept hearing noises from the trees, branches snapping, the sound of footsteps circling the camp. But every time I shined my flashlight toward the noise, there was nothing there. just shadows, stretching unnaturally in the moonlight. The next morning, we packed up and headed back down the trail, trying to laugh off the weirdness of the night before. But something was different. The woods felt off. The air seemed heavier, like it was pressing down on us. Every turn in the trail felt like we were being watched. When we finally reached the parking lot, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. It wasn't until we were back home that I decided to check the recorder again. I didn't even have to press play. The moment I turned it on, I heard it. A low hum, followed by a voice, clearer than ever before. Stay away. It wasn't just a warning, it was a command. I tried to erase the recordings, but they wouldn't delete. I reformatted the device, but every time I checked, the files were there. Always on the same day, always that same voice. It was almost like something was following me, reminding me that I had crossed into a place I shouldn't have been. I haven't gone back to those mountains since. I don't even go near any forests now. Every time I hear a strange noise at night or see a shadow move in the corner of my eye, I can't shake the feeling that whatever was on that recorder is still watching. And sometimes I hear that same voice, clear as day, echoing in my head. Stay away. And so, travelers of the dusk, the last thread of our tale unravels into the night. The whispers fade, weaving themselves into the fabric of your dreams. Rest now, cradled by the silence, as the lantern dims and the world softens. Sleep deeply, my friends, until our paths cross again in another story. Good night.